we're a couple of minutes behind, but we'll wait another minute or so as we continue to admit individuals. Just wanted to welcome all of you and thank you for joining us this evening for very discussion and updates. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Washington Area Program of Projects Community Open House. We are glad you are here this evening. Thank you for joining us. Again, we have a lot of information that we want to share with all of you with the community this evening, but we do have a lot of opportunities for community input, discussion, and thoughts this evening. Next slide, please. So at all of our community open house meetings that we host in Globeville, Elyria, Swansea, language justice is very important to us. So we do have language interpretation this evening. So for interpretation, you're going to need to be connected to either a tablet or a computer, and you will go to the globe icon in the bottom right of your screen, and then you will select the language of your preference. And again, if your preference is English, you need to also select English as your preferred language. We'll give everyone a moment to do so.
Bueno, buenas noches a todos. Es un placer darles la bienvenida y a todas nuestras reuniones son interpretadas. Can you hear me? Todas nuestras reuniones son interpretadas y por lo tanto.
Can't hear you.
I think he's in the Spanish channel.
Okay.
If you could take me out.
Okay. Usually he's in this side with us to explain in Spanish before we move to interpretation. So if everyone has selected their language preference, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide, please.
Wait, Anthony, I think that we're still trying to get that to work. And I think that he was asking to be removed from the Spanish channel to be put in the main channel to be able to speak to everyone so they can choose.
Okay, Michelle, are you able to assist with that?
Say that again. I'm sorry. I went over to the other channel.
Yeah, we need to move Francisco from the Spanish channel back to the main room.
Was he able to connect with everyone and did they all move over or not?
No, I was able to speak to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, Francisco, I can hear you.
Okay, excellent. So, bienvenidos a todos. Todas nuestras reuniones son bilingües.
You know, he's in the Spanish channel, so
I'm going to dump him out.
Yeah, if somebody selected English, they can't hear him.
Okay. Francisco, we can't hear you. The English channel cannot hear you. So I'm going to have you moved back to the English channel so that you can explain. Michelle?
Nora is available maybe to explain.
I moved him. I'll click him out again. Are you back, Francisco?
No, it does not appear to be. And thank you for your patience, everyone. Technology can be challenging at times, but it's very important that we share this information with community.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you, yes.
Okay. Buenas noches a todos. Gracias por su paciencia. Lamentamos los problemas técnicos. Todas nuestras reuniones son interpretadas y la reunión de esta noche es bilingüe. Para nosotros la justicia del idioma es muy importante. Para escuchar interpretación al español, por favor, si puede seleccionar el icono de la interpretación en la parte inferior derecha y seleccione el idioma de su preferencia. Es muy importante que haga esto.
Gracias. And next slide, Michelle, or next slide. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our facilitator who has joined us for several community meetings in Globeville, Lariswancia, as well as our community advisory group, and that's Catherine Archuleta with Dimension Strategies.
Thank you, Anthony, and welcome to everybody who's been taking time out of their day to join us at our community open house. We're really, really happy that you could be here, especially since our last one got rained out, and we've now missed Zoom, so we all have the roofs over our heads. Rain will not fall on us because we're very excited to have with us tonight an incredible group of individuals who will be talking about the GES Sidewalk Program, Washington Street, Globeville, and Levy update, and the 48th Avenue outfall. We brought together a group of individuals from the city and county of Denver, as well as from our consulting groups who have been working on these projects with many of you already. We're anxious to start our descriptions for you. I wanted to let you know that throughout our agenda, we're going to have opportunity not only to have discussion, but also to spend some time getting your feedback. And we're going to use the magic of Zoom and polling to help us do that. We'll share with you how to do it so that it's not confusing. It's actually pretty simple. Even I can do it. And as many of you know, I'm not technologically gifted. So as we walk through the program, please don't hesitate to use the chat room. If you have questions or comments, we have monitors who are looking at the chat room. See that as a way of also communicating with us, but please be assured that in the agenda throughout the evening, we'll have time to stop and hear from you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Karen and Chris.
Actually, I'm gonna.
Oh, sorry, Beth.
1 second.
That's okay. Thanks,
so
Beth.
We are going to be doing some polling questions this evening, and I want everyone to get organized. And so I want you to take your phone and you're going to create a new text to the number 22333. So if you can all just start a new text and type in 22333, that's who you're sending it to. And then the message you're going to send is OV Consulting 414. And it does not all need to be caps. It can be anything. Just type in OV Consulting 414 and you're going to hit send. So you should receive a response that you've joined this session. And don't click on anything else. Just that's good. As long as you get that response, you're in, and you'll be ready when we do get to those polling questions.
For just a moment, Beth, let's just wait to see if anybody's having trouble. Please let us know in the chat that you're having trouble so that we can help. We'll just take a few seconds to be sure that everybody was able to text to 2233 and send that message, OV Consulting 414. Looks like everybody is in, Beth, so 100%, oops, there it is. Instructions are in the chat room as well. It looks like we're not having any problems. So I think we're ready to go to the next slide. And is that Karen?
That it is.
Take it away.
Great. Well, thanks much. If folks have questions, I'm going to present a little bit of information from this map. And we're going to highlight some of the opportunities you have to provide additional input. A bunch of you have seen this before. Many of you, however, this might be new information. And what we have here is a big map of the sidewalks that are going in the area, and they are coded by year. I don't expect everyone to be able to read all the details, but I do want to start over on the right side or the east side of the map. We have sidewalks identified on by Elyria Park, and then we have some sidewalks in the Elyria Swansea area. Those are in the 21-22 area. You'll see if you pop all the way over to the west by the T there, that's the 41st and Fox station, and there are a number of sidewalks in that area. Will actually be out in, thank you so much. Whoever's the cursor is circling the area around 41st and Fox. And we actually have a pop-up next week on the 22nd, next Wednesday outside. It might rain, it might not. We'll have some tents and we'll have a larger version of this map. And not only will we have a team talking about upcoming sidewalks that are in design. We were just out there yesterday on a field trip and looked at scooting some of the sidewalks around to where they may be most useful to residents. We'll also have our project manager for some of the sidewalks that are going to construction next year by Garden Place Elementary. If you just cross over I-25 and hop into that area, you'll see some sidewalks in that area along the bridge, the 44th bridge, coming down and connecting to Broadway there, and also along 45th, just to the east of the school. I'm sorry, 44th to the east of the school. So a lot of things going on. We've also got Washington Street, which we'll hear more about the Washington Street project as a whole. And you've been hearing lots about the Washington Street project as a whole. So that's a big sidewalk section. And we have 51st all the way to the north there, connecting with Washington Street as sidewalks that are going in. So we've got a lot of big connections in the area. And I know folks may have some specific questions about specific sidewalks. So I want to pop to the next slide. And this is our flyer for that pop-up I was talking about. Sorry, this is we also have one on the 28th. I don't know if we have a slide for the one on the 22nd. I'll be out.
We do not, but we can pull that up by the end.
No worries. It says exactly the same thing, except it says Wednesday, September 28th, 4:30 to 6:30. So, and it highlights some of the sidewalks in the Fox Station area that were just on the map you were looking at a second ago. So we do have these two pop-ups. We'd love to see you. They're outside. Where we time them so that hopefully folks can catch us on their way home from work, before dinner, maybe on their way home from school. So again, please let us know if you need more information. The one on the 28th is at 51st and Steele at the corner of the Swansea Neighborhood Park. And then the one next week on the 22nd, 4:30 to 6:30, same as the 28th one. And that will be at Seder Metal. They are at the corner of Delaware and
43rd.
43rd. Thank you, Anthony. I was just there. I was trying to get the map in my head. So Delaware and 43rd, the neighborhoods at the Fox 41st and Fox Station area neighborhood has been flyered already. And we'll be flyering. We're working on this flyer and we'll get that out into the community later this week or early next week. So
can we just put that information in the chat too, just so that as people go along, Karen, and they can check back into the chat as the
absolutely
meeting continues.
Yes, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Date, time, and location.
Yep. We will get that there momentarily. So with that, I'd like to pop it open to questions regarding sidewalks.
One way for us to know that you have a question is to use this under the reactions button on Zoom. There's a hand raise that you could do, and we'll all be watching for that. I know my colleagues will help me. I can't see everybody, but I think between all of us, we'll be able to identify people who have questions. So clearly open for questions, comments from the everybody who's attending. So Nancy, I see your hand.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Absolutely.
we can.
Okay, great. And Vernon Hill is here also, just to let you know.
Hello.
So around 41st and Fox, that station there, the sidewalks that are going there, is the developer paying for those sidewalks? Or if not, then where's the money coming from for those?
Sure. So I should jump back a little bit for folks that haven't heard about this for umpteen years. So this is the Sidewalk Gap Program, and it is funded by the Elevate Denver Bond Program. So primarily these are in areas with existing residential and filling gaps to, for instance, if you look at 41st and Fox, that 44th Bridge, that's not adjacent to any redevelopment. And the big area north of 45th, that big empty triangle north of the station, that is a redevelopment site. And we're not putting sidewalks into areas where where an active redevelopment project is going on. We are putting them in areas where there's existing residential that has limited or non-existent sidewalks.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And that is the same for all of these areas. With the Sidewalk Gap Program, I'm sure you're aware that there are a fair number of areas within Globeville, Elyria, and Swansea where the existing sidewalk is very narrow or maybe significantly damaged. And we do have a little flexibility within this bond program to do something to widen or improve sidewalks that are below our current standards. But by and large, they are focused on areas where we simply don't have sidewalks in front of in front of residents. And I have a question from Nola about Swansea sites and not seeing them on the map. So we do have some areas on 50, they are cut off the map. So that's not why you're seeing them, because the map is larger than the clip that you see here. We do have sidewalks that extend beyond the map, so that those 50-second sidewalks I was just talking about at the Swansea Neighborhood Park, you can't see on this map. It is further to the east because this meeting is focused on the Washington area. So we clipped in, so you have some hope of seeing the maps in this area, or I'm sorry, the sidewalks in this area that we're working on.
Can we
And
get those to NOLA though, Karen?
yes, and I have to double check. I believe this map is on our sidewalk website, so we'll double check that and get back to you, Nola.
Thank you, NOLA. We'll get those to you.
And Karen, there's one question in the chat that we wanted to just see if you might be able to answer, and then we will need to move.
Sure. I was looking at, there was one question about zooming in on the map from Gail. And Beth, I don't know if you can zoom in more than what we have. I know that if you're looking at this on a computer, you can go up to view options and do a zoom ratio of like 300%. And you can zoom in from your computer. If you're on a phone, that doesn't work so well. You have to use your fingers and what have you.
You can also, I can't zoom while we're in presentation mode.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, but we can also post this map and in the chat as well, if that's helpful to anyone.
But just so folks know, because we know that sometimes you really want to be able to zoom in on things there. If you look at the top bar of your Zoom, you should see, if you hover over the white bar, you should see a view options with a pull down menu. And the first thing should be a zoom ratio. And I just popped it up to 300%, and that makes it pretty darn big, and you can just navigate around. But if you have a specific question, Gail, let me know.
She says she's got it. And John, we'll be glad to post the map link in the chat. So we'll do that, as well as the information on the pop-ups that are going to come on the 22nd and the 28th. Is that right?
That is absolutely right. And Lacey, I am preempting you. I am betting that you would like to get the flyer for the 28th. And once it is finished, I will get that to you. And we can send that the PDF to anyone that would like it electronically, please put that in the chat. And just so you know, the PDFs and what we're flyering with, they're double-sided with English and Spanish.
All right, thank you so much, Karen, and thank you everybody who participated in the discussion session. We're going to move on now to Washington Street and 51st Avenue, and we're going to get updates on that.
Okay, Eric?
David's going to take this one.
Okay, so Eric Brack and Dave Duzak, who are with the City and County of Denver and also from RSNH Consulting Group.
Yes, hi everyone, good evening. My name is David Duzak. I'm with the engineering firm RSNH. We're working with the City and County of Denver on two projects in this area, the first of which is Washington Street improvements. This project has a long history of planning with and outreach with the community. And I'll give a little background information and then let you know where things stand today. So in 2014, the Global Neighborhood Plan was completed, and this plan identified elements which were essential for Washington Street corridor, including connectivity, access, and multimodal improvements. And the overarching goal of this planning study was to transition Washington Street to an attractive community asset, which would improve community health, improve the safety for pedestrians and people biking, and also improve better access or have better access to transit. The current project extends from 47th Avenue to 52nd Avenue at the county line. Next slide. A further effort completed in 2018 was the Washington Street Planning Study. This effort involved a lot of community outreach and meetings, some of which people on this call may have been involved with. This work developed a cross-section that the community would like to see to make Washington Street a main street in the area. So I wanted to review some elements of the cross-section, which is shown on the top graphic. And this was the preferred cross-section that was developed as a part of that work. This involved one travel lane in each direction, a left-hand turn lane, on-street parking on both sides of the roadway, new curb and gutter, and behind the curb and gutter would be an amenity zone or an area to put landscaping and trees, and then a multimodal sidewalk for both walking and biking beyond that. So one thing we're looking at is how to construct this within the limits of the roadway. I wanted to call out the dimension on top of the top graphic. The right-of-way is about 60 feet wide on this block between 49th and 50th Avenue. The community preferred cross-section would involve widening the right-of-way by about 31 feet beyond what it is today. So one thing we were thinking about looking into is if we needed to change the cross-section, how would we change it to still meet the spirit and intent of the planning study? And these are just ideas, but we wanted to talk about them tonight. If we need to, we would potentially remove on-street parking on one side of the roadway. One of our efforts we've been undertaking is looking at the land use of parcels along the corridor. And we realized that many of the parcels on the east side of Washington Street may not need on-street parking because there may already be a parking lot within the site. Also, the businesses on the west side of the street may be more desired to have on-street parking. So we could potentially remove parking on the east side, which would save on construction costs and the right-of-way as well. Another option we had and we looked at is if we had to reduce the multimodal sidewalk width from 12 feet to 10 feet wide. So we would reduce it by 2 feet on either side, which would save 4 feet total. So these two elements combined would reduce the right-of-way needs by about 10 feet from the community preferred cross-section to an alternative cross-section. So these are just some ideas we wanted to mention and talk about with the community about things we may need to look into depending on the impacts as the project is designed. So I wanted to review a few aerial graphics. These graphics are what were developed as part of the planning study in 2018. We just changed the format and added some things to it, but by and large, this is the same exact thing that was developed a few years back. And I'll review what the colors mean, and I'll walk through the corridor briefly. So the gold color is the sidewalk we're proposing. The orange is the proposed curb and gutter. The blue color is the amenity zone, or where trees would be planted. And the pink is the on-street parking. And again, this is the wider cross section, which would show on-street parking on both sides of the roadway. I wanted to mention we will be improving the railroad crossing between 47th and 48th Avenue. And if you also notice a white box at 48th Avenue, there's an ongoing project which will be discussed tonight about how that intersection will work, and pending outcome of that project, we'll incorporate that design into this project. So that will be discussed in a little bit. We go to the next slide. Continuing up north, further north, between 49th and 50th Avenue, one thing I wanted to mention is the right-of-way on the west side. The sidewalk hugs the right-of-way on the west side, and the improvements expand to the east. And this is mainly because we're looking to minimize impact to businesses and people who may live on Washington Street. And we found that there was a lot more open space or open asphalt and parking areas on the east side. So it seemed more reasonable to expand to the east, at least along this block. Next slide. As we continue north, you may notice that the roadway kind of shifts from hugging the right-of-way on the west side to hugging it on the east side. And this is because east to the north of 51st Avenue, we will look to minimize right-of-way impacts to the businesses on the east side between 51st and 52nd. So there is a shift in the alignment. And again, this was identified as part of the planning efforts a few years back. Also, you'll notice the 51st Avenue intersection is realigned, and I will discuss that project after this one, so I'll get more detail then. So the funding is something we would like to discuss, and we need to fit the design and construction of the project into the available funding that is there. So that's why we discussed the potential changes to the cross section. So the polling question is asking if any of those elements of the cross section would be very important or most important that you would like to see maintained if we needed to reduce certain elements. And that would be the parking on the east side and the multimodal sidewalk width going from 12 feet to 10 feet.
Yeah, so guys, this is where we're going to take our phones, and you're going to text an answer right into that text you already, there you go, got started. And basically, I know this is a little convoluted on the screen, but the question is, you know, like David was saying, if we are having to look at ways to be efficient and economical, what are some of the most important things to you, so that we're making those considerations in the design, as we're also trying to be efficient and economical in the cost of that design. So a stoplight at 52nd and Washington, fantastic. Are there any other locations or key things you guys want us to make sure we're noting? The bike lane. So if you recall, in the study from 2018, we landed at shared paths that were wide enough to accommodate both bikes and pedestrians. And so the specific bike lane was not included in the preferred design. It was a shared use pathway on either side instead. And that was because of the truck traffic and some of the characteristics of Washington. But thank you for the comment. And that's kind of what that was about. Where do I go?
Actually, you can just text it right there. You're right where you need to be.
There you go. Oh, good. Okay, reducing on-street parking is a plus. And that's a great comment to know, because we are concerned, of course, about taking out parking, but we also have to look at the mix of uses along there. And there are locations where maybe the on-street parking is not as needed and could be, help us with the design and cost of this new street. All right. You can keep sending, okay, bus station seating and shelters, fantastic. That's a great one, and has not entered into the conversation yet in the terms of the design team, but is a great one, great reminder for everyone. You can keep texting to this, it won't close. So your answers will come in, but David, I'm gonna allow you to move into the next section, okay?
Sure. So the other project we're currently working on, which is a lot further in design, is 51st Avenue. This project, as shown in the gold color on the map, is the east-west connection from Logan Street to Emerson Street. This is a direct connection to the proposed improvements, including the new bridge over the Platte River from the National Western Center. So where the green and blue colors are adjacent projects to this project, which we will tie directly into. Those are the Harem Pond project and the National Western Center Bridge. Those are both ahead of us in terms of design and construction, but there will be an intermediate time when we are not yet completed, but our project will come in and connect the pieces together in the future. So we had a public meeting back in May. We had a pretty detailed overview of this project. This is more of an update, so you may have seen some of this before, but I'll go over a few key features. Our key improvements are constructing new sidewalks along both sides of 51st Avenue with a buffer area between the sidewalk and roadway. We'll also be installing bike facilities along both sides of 51st Avenue. As you probably know, the 51st Avenue and Washington intersection, their legs are offset from each other. So one of our goals is to realign 51st Avenue on the approaches to Washington Street so they meet at one single point. Our design entails realigning the eastbound approach to the south to meet the westbound approach at one point. And we'll also be improving the railroad crossing at Logan Street and installing sidewalks to fill in the gaps where they are today. This is just the existing and proposed cross sections for both west and east of Washington Street. As an overview, we'll be installing curb and gutter where there is none today. We'll be installing bike lanes. West of Washington Street, we have a buffered bike lane. And east of Washington Street, we'll be using a shared use path for both bikes and pedestrians. And that condition matches what the National Western Center Bridge will have on it. And we'll also have an amenity zone or open space between the sidewalk and curb as we're allowed with the space available. So this is an aerial display which we developed. We walked through this in detail at the May meeting. I won't go through this in great detail tonight, but I would like to review some changes or a change from the previous public outreach we had in May, as shown on the next slide. The intersection at 51st and Washington. You can go to the next slide. So in our prior workshop and meeting, we showed this intersection. And the key change is on the eastbound approach to the intersection, we previously had a more angled approach to the Washington Street. And now you'll see the west leg or eastbound approach has more curvature to it. We also were able to tighten the corner radius where the curb ramps are. And this will help us accomplish more of a Main Street feel and make walking across the crosswalks easier and closer together than we had previously shown. So those are some key updates from the past meeting. For the schedule, we have finished our preliminary design. So the final design is ongoing right now. We're looking to complete that early next year. The right-of-way procurement process typically takes about 18 months after our design is finished. And when that's complete, we'll go to advertisement and bidding. And as our current plan is to be in construction in the early part of 2024. So if you have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to take them now.
Well, Vernio has a question. We marked raising our hand.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, can you come here? Okay, as I look at that 51st intersection there and the restaurant that is located there, it looks
Casa Down Juan.
Casa Don Juan.
Yes.
I guess the question that I have is how is that going to affect his parking area if you realign that tight against his property
And this restaurant.
and his restaurant?
Yes, if you can go back to the intersection screen, that's a great question. And I didn't mention this a minute ago, but we will be reaching out to every property owner who is affected, including the restaurant parcel, to discuss the project with them. We do realize this is a tight situation here, and we need to work with the owner of the restaurant to figure out what works best for him or her. Right now, that discussion wasn't able to happen until after the preliminary plans and design was complete. Now it's complete. So our next step is to contact everyone in the area, including the restaurant, to discuss that and figure out what access is best for them. Is it, a separate entrance between Washington and the alleyway? Is it maybe a widened alleyway access? At this point, we don't have an answer, but we do know that outreach will be happening soon.
Well, from what I can see there, basically, he's going to be losing all his parking or just a substantial amount of it.
Right now, there's no real delineation or curb between his parking and the roadway. And so with the curb and gutter and sidewalk going in within the right of way, except for the corner, that is, we'll have to figure out what works best. At this point, I can't say for sure what that answer is.
Okay.
Catherine, I think we have another question as well from Jenny.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't see them, so thank you for the help.
Hola, buenas tardes, good evening. They're doing a bridge in by the Platte River, right? Is that by the 51st with David Ocelot Garcia? They're building a bridge with the sun and the moon. Is that taking place nearby?
Yeah, the proposed bridge is on 51st Avenue. You are correct. And it's directly east of this area. And I believe there will be an update on the bridge construction tonight, actually. So you will hear more information on that soon.
Is there any way possible that theme or that kind of momentum? So let's say that this region gets revamped years later. Can there be a theme connected as far as like artwork and displayed? If those are just my thoughts and ideas. So if and when, let's say we became a walk area like in San Antonio where people go visit and are familiar with the region, can that kind of be within the thought process?
I think that's a great idea. And Jenny, let's hold that thought for 1 second till we get to Jim. He has some more drawings of it, and then maybe we can explore that a little further.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very cool idea. If there,
Nancy, do you still have another question or just your hands just there?
Oh, no question. I'll change my hand.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the next one.
Oh, Catherine, really quickly, Jackie Specht just chimed in the chat if she could ask a question.
Okay, hi Jackie.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, good to see you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm new to the neighborhood. We're a business. We purchased a warehouse at 5155 Clarkson. And I'm the one who mentioned the 52nd and Washington stoplight, only because we take lefts and rights around that little neighborhood corridor, and it's visibly very hard when you're coming up 52nd Street if you need to go left on Washington. Really, almost at any time of day, it can be very difficult to see the traffic that's coming up and down Washington when you're at 52nd and Washington. And so I just wanted to mention that because the stoplight at 51st in Washington is a little bit offset and it doesn't time with the one that's up. But if you're going to, and I'm not an expert, but if you're going to add a stoplight at 52nd and Washington, that kind of draws all three of these stoplights together. It's a very awkward intersection, as I'm sure you can see.
Jackie, I wanted to mention, I didn't mention before, the traffic signal at 51st Avenue is currently at the eastbound approach only. So
Right.
as part of this project, we'll be removing that signal and installing a new traffic signal at the new intersection where all 4 points will meet.
I see.
So, I mean, I understand your concerns on 52nd Avenue, but we'll have to discuss more with the city on that, on how we approach that issue. However, if you take 51st in the future, that problem will be alleviated.
I see. Okay, great. That answers my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just to confirm, it wasn't a but, it was an and on that.
No.
Yeah.
Well, we'll look forward to it. Thank you.
I do have a question.
Okay,
Yes.
Nancy.
Okay,
off
I
to you.
wanted to make sure here, like on the 51st going east and making a right-hand turn on Washington Street, is there going to be a right-hand turn lane? Because that gets really backed up. And the same thing at 47th on the west side when you're looking east, there isn't a right-hand turn, a continuous, like a right-hand turn lane, and it gets all backed up.
So our configuration is shown in the graphic on your screen. On the eastbound approach, we have 2 lanes. We have a left-hand turn lane only, and then the lane to the right of that would be a shared lane for through traffic and right-hand turn traffic combined.
Like it is now.
Yeah, and it's very constricted space here. We're trying to avoid building impacts on the southwest corner, that larger building.
Yes.
With the white roof. So expanding the cross section to include a dedicated right-hand turn lane would not fit in our design as we have it shown now. So we do understand that there are some traffic queues and backups currently. We are making the left-hand turn lane longer than it is today. But that's what we're coming up with now to fit into the constraints that we're dealing with at this location.
Okay, and as I said, I didn't get to tune into what was happening further south on Washington at 47th Street when you're trying to exit the community there and go south on Washington Street. There is not a right turn lane and it's very congested there.
Okay.
So that's
Nancy, that's a good comment for the Washington piece of things. 47th intersection. So look,
right.
There are some folks taking notes, so I think that's a good one that someone, if you could capture that concern at 47th, which is just not showing on this map right here.
Yeah. Thank you.
So
Okay.
Joseph, I know that you have some concerns about CDOT. We're running out of time. In the chat, did you get your answers from Anthony already in terms of the relationship with CDOT? Because I know we can't answer them.
I have not actually. I met Anthony about a couple of months ago in regards to 4601 Washington Street. And I've been dealing with CDOT since 7/22. And I was told, 47th, I was told that the last thing that I was told was that they wanted to dispose of the property, but I asked to who, and they couldn't give me an answer. I've been told that they wanted to work with Parks and Recreation, but that's not the case. So pretty much I've been lied to since 7/22, and no one seems to know what is going to happen with the property of 4601. We, unfortunately, neighbors are starving for fresh air. And we, unfortunately, are not covered by the cement wall that supposedly helps us with the pollution. So yeah, I'm still trying to, and I was hoping to get answers today. I was assured by Jessica Mickelboss that someone from CDOT would be here today to answer my questions. But here I am again, being lied to. So, but yeah, on this map, I don't see 4601 Washington Street, which is the property between 46 and 47. I have a petition going to turn that property into a dog park / park or public park. But I took the day off to come and join this Zoom meeting to hopefully get some answers, but here I am.
We apologize. I think Anthony's explained to you, CDOT is not at this meeting, but Anthony, because he is the community engagement person from OCBE, he's going to help you make that connection. And
well, see, the thing is that I did meet Anthony, and we did try to get that connection, but no one at CDOT wants to either help or they just started doing something about that property when I started calling. So that's why I have a petition on change.org to change that into a dog park / public park.
I think that information to the other members of the community who are in this meeting is very helpful. Thank you, Joseph. And Anthony will continue to work with you. Obviously, we need to reach out to CDOT, and I know Anthony is very diligent about these things, so he will work with you to reach into CDOT.
Perfect. So, Anthony, thank you so much. And if you can email me and let me know what we can do to pressure CDOT to either give that land back to Globeville or do something with that land, because there's a lot of broken glass, garbage. Okay. They came once to sort of clean it, but they forgot. There's tons of potholes. The land has been abandoned for almost 30 years, since 1992.
Thank you, Joseph.
Okay, Joseph.
Thank you for sharing that. And Anthony, I know you'll follow
absolutely.
up with Joseph. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move us along because as the facilitator, I'm responsible for ending this meeting on time, and I know we have a lot more to go and a lot that we want to share with you. So we're going to move on to the Globeville levy update, and I'm going to check to see who's going to help.
Yep, that's me.
Okay, thanks,
Good evening,
Kelly.
everyone.
I'm looking for you, but I can't find you. There you are. Thank you,
I
Kelly.
just needed to speak and then I'd pop up. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelly Kram. I'm the DOTI project manager on the Globeville Levy project, phases 2 and 3. The project is a collaborative with Mile High Flood District, and Wilson & Company is the design engineer. We also have Naranjo Civil as the contractor, as an extension of our design team. So they're involved throughout the design process. And then also on the call is Jim Coakley. He is the DOTI project manager on the Harem Pond Globeville Levy phase 1 project, and he'll speak in just a couple of minutes on the status of that project. As a reminder for those who have not been introduced to the project already, the Globeville Levy project was identified as a key project in the Globeville stormwater system study completed in December of 2019 to reduce flood risk in the Globeville, Utah Junction stormwater basin. The study identified that the height of the existing levee located along the west side of the South Platte River, next to the existing trail, is approximately 2 feet lower than the 3 feet minimum freeboard required by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, in most locations. The study also identified a spill location during the 100-year storm event just south of 38th Street on the west bank of the river. The study evaluated options and provided recommendations for reducing the risk of river flooding to avoid floodplain redesignation from this spill. Recent studies show that if a spill were to happen, over 700 additional structures would be impacted during a 100-year event. The area in blue shown on the map is the potential inundation area or properties that could be flooded if the river were to spill during a large rain event. Next, please. As a reminder, the levee is located on the west bank of the South Platte River. The existing levee consists of earthen embankment and walls that extend from Franklin south to 38th Avenue. Phase 1 improvements are to the existing earthen levee, and they extend from Franklin to 51st, as I said, through the Harem Pond Park. Phase 2 are improvements to the existing levee, and they extend from 51st Avenue south to 38th Street. And then phase 3 is a new levee to eliminate the spill I was talking about that was identified just south of 38th Street. And this reach extends from 38th Street to approximately 31st. And now I'll turn it over to Jim Coakley so he can provide you an update on phase 1.
All right. Yeah, as Kelly mentioned, we're doing that red section right there at the north, really almost to 50th. It's going to start in approximately a week or two, which is really great news. We've been working on it for a few years. We expedited this phase of our project to work with the bridge project that National Western is doing at 51st, as was brought up earlier. It's going to move that South Platte River Trail about 20 feet roughly through the park, just a little further from the river so we can get a couple feet higher. At the end of the project, you may barely notice it except for where it approaches the bridge, and it'll dip under and then catch back up with the existing trail. That is going to commence really for the next couple months, and most of the earthwork and the trail itself will be put in, and then the bridge abutment will happen this winter. And hopefully by this spring, the bridge will have been built over the river and touch down to the existing 51st Avenue. Right around that same time, early spring of 2022, our Harem Pond project will commence to build the pond in the park area and rebuild 51st Avenue to Emerson and Emerson between 51st and 52nd. That'll take another year approximately for the entire project. So really by the beginning of 2023, we're pretty excited that our infrastructure will be there, and then the park will continue the next year. So by 2024, this park should be open and we should have a really great community park in the neighborhood. It's been years in the making, but it's happening, which is pretty great. So that's really, in a nutshell, where we're at with our project.
Jim, do you want to just share we had some questions about the bridge and the alignment and look, and maybe this is a good chance for folks to comment or share ideas.
Yeah, National Western is taking care of the bridge. Really, our connection is where the trail and the bridge meet, kind of through the curve there. If you're looking at that picture on the left, the bridge itself is designed. A lot of the artwork, if you want, the aesthetics are kind of set. But if you want to reach out to Beth, or if you can get a hold of me, that's great. I can put you in touch with some of the folks at National Western, and maybe we can make some improvements. There are always opportunities to keep making things look better. So I'd be happy to get you in contact with some more people though, to keep that moving. Like I said, they're going to commence here almost really at the same time, and they're going to start on the other side of the river and build the bridge across through the winter. The design is mostly done. There's just a little bit of work that needs to be done on some of the final details, but it pretty much is underway. We can work with you on some aesthetics questions though.
If you have aesthetics questions and you want to talk more to Jim or to Beth about that, you could also put your name in the chat so that they could reach out to you as well.
Yeah, Jenny, that'd be great.
Great, thanks, Jim. All right, moving on to phase 2. So as I said, phase 2 extends from 51st Avenue south to 38th Avenue. And the improvements include raising the existing earthen levee or existing wall. The cross sections on the left at the bottom show the two different cross sections through this section. Sometimes the South Platte River Trail sits on top of the levee. And then in certain locations, the trail sits adjacent to the levee. In most locations, the trail will either continue to sit on top of or next to it, but we will be making adjustments and improvements to the existing trail section so that it meets the current park standards. And I'll touch a little bit more of that later. Phase 3, which extends from 38th to 31st Avenue, is a tighter cross section through this area. And so because of that, we have to do the picture on the top there where the trail is immediately adjacent to Ringsby Court, and then this will be a wall along this location. As I said, we'll be doing some trail improvements along the project reach, including updating the width of the trail. We will also be improving trail access points and potentially adding some additional access points. I do want to note that revegetation is limited in most areas to grasses. There can't be trees or wooded vegetation within 15 feet of the bottom of the slope of the levee. And so any existing trees that may exist within this limit will have to be removed. And then moving on through a little more detail, starting at 51st Avenue, we do have the access that will be a part of phase 1. Through this reach, it is an earthen levee that will be raised, and there's a couple of pictures of the existing conditions where the trail sits next to the levee or on top of the levee. One thing to note in this location, the 50th Avenue cul-de-sac there, we are considering eliminating this access because the access to the trail is being concentrated at 51st Avenue through the Harem Pond Park and through the 48th Avenue connection. Moving on to the central part of the levee. Next slide, please. Through here, we have some earthen sections and some wall sections. The earthen identified by the red dash line, and then the existing wall that will be raised is identified by the yellow line through here. There is another access at 46th Avenue. The existing north access will be improved, and then we are looking at adding an additional access on the south side of 46. Moving on to the next. So through this section, we have more wall that will be raised and earthen levee as well. We'll be making improvements to the 45th Avenue access through the McDonald's parking lot. And then there's also the access that is currently a social trail off of 38th Avenue to the north that we're looking at improving and potentially formalizing. And then moving south to the last part through Ringsby Court. These are just a couple of pictures of the tight corridor. The earthen berm may extend just slightly south of 38th where it's a little wider in that picture on the top. And then at the bottom, you can see it's extremely tight corridor. And so therefore we have to put the wall in this location. The project is currently moving from 30% to 60% design right now, and we're aiming for the 60% design to be complete in the spring of 2022. The funding has been identified for construction in the 6-year capital plan starting in 2022, with funding being allocated through 2024. And right now, construction is likely to start in the fall of 2023, and the construction of this will likely be phased due to the considerable length of the project. And then with that, I think we can open it up to questions and go to our poll question.
Kelly, Jan had a question.
Sure.
She commutes via 51st South to the Salvation Army shelter, and she's wondering whether there'll be a detour provided during construction.
Yeah, absolutely. When we have to close the trail for construction, we will definitely have the trail detours. We don't know what those will look like yet, but as we get closer, and we will definitely advertise those well in advance so that everybody is aware of these detours.
So that includes bike trails, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Because there will be closures of the trail as we're working, since the trail sits on top of and next to the levee.
And Kelly, ours is being put together by Ames Construction right now with the Levy project. Within a week or so, they will have it. It's really just a couple blocks, and it'll keep you through the park. We're not going to send you back. There's a small short section on Franklin right there around the National Guard, but not fighting through. It's some pretty big traffic out there. I get you. It would be pretty scary on a bike. So we'll keep you pretty close to where you already are.
Yeah, we're gonna have to put a lot of thought into the detours for this project. And that's why we wanted to bring the contractor on board as early as possible to think about these.
Jan says thanks with the big exclamation.
Thank you for the question, Jan. If
So
there's
I-
no other questions, we can move on to the polling question.
Okay.
And I can't read the whole question, sorry. What aspects of the levy are the most
Critical to you.
critical? Thank you.
Yeah, so what is most important to you, or what is most critical? So I know that this is a project that, it's the design of the levee. So not all of us have a whole lot to say about, how we technically design a levee. But there are certain parts of this, the trail connections and the trail and like you were just saying, the detours during construction that are going to be important. And we want to make sure that as this design moves forward, we're taking into account those needs. This is a great one. Will there be access at 48th Street Outfall? So yes, that is a huge goal that you'll hear a little bit more about when we talk about 48th here next. And linking 48th to this trail connection will be fantastic. Any other hot spots that are critical or that you think of? The trails go both above and below the bridges. I'm not sure what that means exactly. So if anyone wanted to say that out loud, that's fine. But for instance, on 51st or on 48th bridges, the trail will be underneath with the levee going under those bridges. And there will also be bike facilities on the bridges going over linking Globeville to National Western.
That is correct, Beth.
Yep, there you go.
Cool.
Great.
Good deal.
Okay, and then just a reminder, if this first polling isn't working for you, just go to the chat and get those questions in as well. Any comments that you feel, if the polling's not working, you can always put them in the chat. All of it will be saved, and these project design teams will be working with these kinds of things as they're moving forward. So important that you get your thoughts in now. All right. Okay, so we'll let you keep participating in this. We'll still keep collecting it. But Kelly, if you're comfortable, we can move on. Oh, we have a couple more coming in.
Yep, thank you so much.
We want art in a complete incorporated into it, and having property along Levy at 50. Oh, good, they're coming along with water value component. Great. I think you have one more polling question, Beth. Ready?
I think that's it for the levy. And then, okay, sorry. Yeah, we did. We broke it into two, which would be the key improvements or changes that you'd like to see. And so some of these responses that we were getting here were with regard to that, incorporating art, which is a great idea. And we have some great designers on board who would be able to think those elements through. So that's a great one. And then having property along the levee at 50th, how close to our property will the levee impact? Kelly or Catherine Reinhardt, do we just want to comment on how we will be informing property owners in the future, or the how we're thinking about that?
Sure. This is Catherine Reinhardt. I'm in the real estate division and I'm a project manager. So if a property is affected by the project, real estate will reach out to the property owners and talk to you about that. That's really all there is. I don't know if Lisa Lumley, if you wanted to add anything.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good. Good evening. Sorry, I've had audio issues. No, Catherine's right. We operate using the federal guidelines with the Uniform Relocation Act. Not that anybody's being relocated, but it's that idea that we try to make sure that when we are working with the owners, we are using a fair, transparent approach to it. And so, but again, until there's a little more information, we're just not at that point yet to have those specific discussions with each owner. But as we go down this road, we absolutely will be. And we are happy to talk to anybody. You can reach out at any time to speak to either Catherine or myself.
You can also use Anthony to be your connection to Lisa and Catherine. So please feel free.
Absolutely.
Anthony is your community engagement director here. So if you can't, if you don't remember Lisa's name or Catherine's name, Anthony's always around too. So you feel free to reach out to Anthony as well, and he'll connect you to the right folks. Okay, so looking at time, if we can, do you want to move on to the next section, Beth, at the 48th Avenue outfall?
Yeah, I think that if folks have other comments on the levy, just feel free to send them into that polling or put them in the chat. We will be sure to get them. And if we can, yep, let's move on to 48.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Holste with Wilson and Company, and we are the design consultants for the 48th Avenue outfall. Lauren Winnan is also on the call from DOTI, and she is our project manager. We just want to give you an overview of where our project stands at this point. We are very much in the initial stages of planning for the project and looking forward to getting your feedback on some alternatives that we've put together. Next slide, please. So this map is really just a brief overview slide to give you an idea of what the 48th Outfall Corridor is. The 48th Outfall extends from Lincoln Street all the way to the river for an outfall point. This outfall is part of the Globeville Stormwater Systems Study, and it actually extends further up into the basin, but the initial portion of the outfall extends to the west side of Lincoln Street. And so the outfall corridor would extend through Argo Park, across the railroad, across Washington, and then connect to the river for an outfall point. So there's several amenities that we're considering with the project and really in the initial planning stages for the project. But one of the key pieces that we focused on is using the outfall and the need for stormwater conveyance really as a catalyst for a community amenity and community improvements. So connectivity is really the key focus for the outfall. In addition to the stormwater conveyance, the connectivity piece is a great benefit that we also see. So we're looking at options to connect to adjacent open spaces, provide that connection all the way up to Lincoln for the future, and then obviously from the South Platte River Trail up to Argo Park. So the next few exhibits are going to focus in on this red, go back just a second, the red dotted area, which is really the key phase one portion of our project, and that's our current design scope. We're going to evaluate the entire project corridor up to 60% design, and then we're taking this red dotted outlined area to 100% design and construction with phase one of the project. So phase one will extend to the west side of Washington Street. Next slide. This slide shows what we call alternative 2. And before I get to that, alternative 1 is really just a base stormwater system, a smaller stormwater conveyance system that follows the existing city street right away. So I didn't want to spend any time necessarily talking about that, but it's included in our alternatives analysis, which is at a 10% design level. And then alternative 2 is another option that we looked at to utilize the existing 48th Avenue corridor And 48th Avenue is planned to extend across the river to the east to connect to the National Western Center with the future Betty Kram Drive Bridge. And so that connection becomes a real important piece of the overall 48th outfall and how that can all tie together. And that's especially as we look at a potential greenway connection and the opportunity to connect to the river trail. A key piece with this alternative too is that 48th Avenue follows the same alignment as existing 48th Avenue. And so there's an offset intersection at the left side there at Washington, connecting south of the Elgin Place intersection. In order for this alternative to work through several different concepts and be feasible, it also would require some connectivity to the north with existing Clarkson, Emerson, and Elgin, potentially providing some street connectivity through these areas. So that creates a little bit narrower potential greenway corridor. And a key thing to note here is this corridor with the trail is intended to be a greenway and will include underground stormwater conveyance in a box culvert, and then surface improvements, kind of a variety of some options like you see at the bottom of the screen that could include just different types of trails and landscaping, some overflow channels, but it wouldn't be a major conveyance of stormwater. It would be a kind of a secondary conveyance. Next slide. Alternative 3 is another alternative that we've put together that really focuses on how we can expand and improve this corridor. On alternative 2, 48th is on the south side of the greenway. An important thing to note is that the bridge that goes over the river for the Betty Kram Drive connection is going to be an elevated structure. So that will create kind of a shadow. And so we wanted to look at options to put the greenway on the south side of that corridor, to where in the wintertime there would be less ice issues and more of an inviting, warm, open space. This also helps because we're able to align 48th Avenue with Elgin Place and provide a little bit of additional separation of that intersection from the railroad. And this ties in with some of the planned improvements that the Washington Street corridor has as well. A key piece here would be the same types of concepts with a storm sewer conveyance underground, and then a greenway connection on the surface with a variety of different trail connections and opportunities to interact with the greenway and then connect to the South Platte River Trail. The future 48th extension across the river is also going to include a two-way cycle track. And one benefit that we have with this configuration is the cycle track will be able to be on the same side of the street as the trail connection. So pedestrians and bicyclists would not have to cross 48th in order to exit onto the river trail and connect into the greenway. The goal overall with the project would be to provide this connection and the corridor overall to connect from the South Platte River Trail up through Argo Park. And so we haven't focused on the Washington to Argo Park connection with this presentation because this is really the first phase of the project. But any of these configurations would be anticipated to then extend west and connect up to Argo Park with that greenway and a trail connection. With this opportunity, we have a little bit wider greenway that could be provided because of the offsets of the right-of-way and utilizing the existing 48th right-of-way to the south. It also allows us to connect into a little bit of a better space, as I mentioned, at the river, to where you can connect on the south side of that bridge and have a little bit more room to accommodate those connections. Next, please. Alternative 3, this other alternative for 3 is an open channel concept. And so this concept is actually does not have any storm sewer culverts underneath it. This is a deeper type of open channel that could be provided, and it would be more of an incised connection, would have to be heavily armored for erosion. At this location, the storm invert would be about 10 to 12 feet deep. So that would be about the depth of what a channel would look like. There would need to be some benching and some additional walls, those types of configurations in order to accommodate something like this. So we wanted to just explore the idea of what it would look like if it was open channel and not major conveyance through a box culvert. But There's also some challenges, some safety concerns that come up with this type of a situation. We're still on the south side of 48th Avenue, so we still have a lot of the same benefits as the Greenway connection itself that I mentioned, but then trying to integrate more of that open channel feel and kind of a more constructed type channel with more decorative landscape to help tie those pieces together. So that's really a quick crash course on what we're looking at for some considerations with the 48th Avenue outfall. As I mentioned, we have a full corridor study that we're looking at, but phase one and a goal of this meeting that we really would like your feedback on is, what the configurations are you find beneficial. And so we have some polling questions to help kind of facilitate those answers. We were really interested in what parts of the layouts you like the most, what excites you about seeing this type of Greenway connection. Any type of configuration that we have, we wanted to use that to really promote that connectivity and that safe connectivity through Globeville for connection to the river trail, whereas now you have a lot of railroad crossing and heavy traffic areas that you have to contend with. So with that, I'm open to any questions, and our team is available for any questions that you may have. I know we've gone through that fast, and so we'll certainly be following up more later as well. As I mentioned, our project is at the 10% alternatives analysis phase. We anticipate wrapping up alternatives analysis this fall and then moving into concept design. So we're at the very beginning stages of the project and want to move toward a vision that would be consistent with what would the citizens of Globeville would find appealing and beneficial for this area.
So let me just sort of see if we can't spark some responses here, whether in the chat or just raising your hand, but like the accessibility to the river, that's great. I think that is a huge improvement if we can get a trail connection between the river trail and this 48 Greenway is fantastic. Are there other aspects? Is there anything that you found very appealing about the Greenway component, the water and Greenway? Anything you liked specifically about that? Personally, I love the idea that this piece we're talking about connects across Washington and up to Argo Park and all the way to Lincoln, and to the additional improvements, bike improvements that are slated for Lincoln. And so it becomes a true connection to the neighborhood eventually.
Yeah, Beth, a couple of questions in the chat.
Great.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Question in the chat that was asking, if you go back to the first slide, Beth, the overview of the entire area, they're asking about the number 2 that was shown. At the concept level, what we're looking at is all of the potential connectivity that could be identified in this area. And so in addition to the trail connection from Lincoln and future connectivity stops there to the river, we also looked at the newly expanded platform open space. And one idea was to look at the potential for a pedestrian type connection at that location where number 2 is shown. Now, that's not part of the scope for design for this project, but at the planning stages, that's something that we're investigating and providing some initial design analysis and feedback on for potential pedestrian connections to where platform open space users would be able to avoid having to go up to Lincoln and then cross back down to get to Argo Park.
Gail, did that answer your question? Or Gail would like to know more about connecting to Argo Park. So did that get to what you wanted, Gail? Okay. Let us know if it doesn't. Angela Garcia has a question. She's on the phone. So Angela, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, please. Thank you, Catherine. I have a question. What is actually being done from, since I live on the other side, from 45th and Washington up to 47th? And I have to say, on this side of town, we don't have a park. We have Globeville Landing. It's very difficult to get to because you have to cross Washington, for somebody who can't walk very well or walk very fast, or like me, or a parent who has children, to be able to cross again there is very difficult. And I would like a park somewhere here in South Gloville. I'm going to put this on the table. We were promised by Tim Sandos that where the tiny home village is now would be made into a park. We were promised that. The tiny home village leaves in June of next year. This may not be the proper place to bring it up, but I'm bringing it up. And again, what is going to happen from 45th to 47th? Do we get any amenities? What happens for us? Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. I think that's a great question. And of course, you know, all these questions are good. And yes, now is the time to bring them up. That doesn't pertain specifically to the map we're looking at right now, but to the area further south, heading toward 45th, right? And
Beth, this is Lisa. Can I respond just really quickly to Angela?
Sure.
So Angela, totally aware, and hi, it's nice to hear your voice again. It is very intentional that we will have a community meeting over there to talk about that site. So as Beth said, this isn't part of this particular project, but we have not forgotten you and or forgotten the conversations around that site when they move in the spring. So just know that there will be some community meetings coming.
Okay, good. Thank you. I will.
Sure.
I will keep you at your word at that. You know I will. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Catherine, you went on mute.
I know we have another question for you, which is sort of the other side of the things that you like. And Beth, do you want to introduce that poll question?
Yeah, so, okay. There were a couple others that people were excited about. So these had started rolling in. A lot of people already crossed there at that point that we were just referring to. And I would also connect over to the bike path on 51st. So all great ideas that allow us to think about these things as we are now getting into this. So let me move this. This is the next question. It is, what are you least excited about? So if you think about this project, is there anything that is not very exciting to you or concerning, or gosh, I wish you would be doing something else? This is the place to get those comments out. And if anyone just has questions to ask, happy to take those too.
I have a question. This is Gail.
Yes, Gail.
Gail.
Okay, so my question is, if folks are going to be coming down from Fox Park area, we only have really two thoroughways through Gloville, which is Lincoln Street and also Washington. So I'm worried about the amount of traffic, bike traffic, pedestrian traffic, coming up and down Lincoln. Are there any other planned thoroughways or thoroughfares through Gloville?
So Gail, the Lincoln, of course, is becoming a neighborhood bikeway, right? So there are some certain efforts going on to add design elements to make that a more pleasant neighborhood bikeway. And so that would run up and down Lincoln. And then, yes, and I do hear you, both you, Gail, and our commenters here, that people drive really fast on that road to and from, and it's such a major connection through the neighborhood that is that really a great place for bikes. So definitely some comments we can give to that bike team to consider. The other options, you know, right now, north-south, the key options are Lincoln, Washington, which would have wider shared use sidewalks, so 10 to 12 feet. So keeping that in mind. And then the new trail along the river, which would be close to 22 feet in that ballpark. So a much improved facility, and those would be the primary north-south at this point. The connectivity study that's also going on, which we hope to bring back to you at the next meeting, has a few ideas on additional streets that might be good connections to consider. And yeah, and Pearl is one of those. Yeah, we lost connection to Argo Park at Elgin and Pearl. And so kind of re-examining Pearl is something we're doing in the connectivity study.
Okay. Just from a historical question, can you answer who is Betty Kram?
Yes. Does anyone with National Western, anybody else want to jump in on Betty Kram? She's one of your oldest residents. She used to work at the National Western Center. She actually was a telephone operator there and worked in the big building. And she was a very active participant in the CAC and all of the National Western Center vision planning. And she was recognized by naming the bridge after her.
Right. And how can we get more involved with the traffic that's going to be on Lincoln? Because Lincoln is also a very narrow street, so only one car can fit, either going north or south. So you have to either scoot over to have another car pass. That's really concerning, especially if we're going to have bikes, and then plus we have parking. So it's just concerning to all of our neighbors on Lincoln Street.
Yeah, I think, so I can absolutely pass that on to that team. I think Nora, I don't know that Nora Nearrider is on this call, but I can communicate with her and Riley LeMay and some of the folks that are working on the various bike facilities.
I'm here and I have noted that concern. Yep. And we'll carry it back to that bike planning team. For sure.
I think there's a lot more conversation to be had on that particular project in the street.
So I'm sure they've actually been here, right? They've come here and looked at the traffic and okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's in, it is proceeding to what they call 60% design. So that bike planning team will be coming back to you in this same format, in a public meeting format, to discuss it in more detail at the beginning of 2022.
I'm really conscious of time. I know that we are at our 7:30 finish time.
Can I request that, can we get that third question up real quick, just to get some quick feedback? Because that gives people an option to provide some thoughts on which configuration is most appealing to them. And even if it's just for a couple minutes, sure appreciate if anyone could provide their feedback on that. Just to reiterate, that option 2 was with 48th Avenue on the south side of a smaller greenway, and then an offset connection at Elgin. And then the 48th Avenue Greenway was a greenway that was on the north side, or 48th Avenue on the north side of a greenway, with that intersection connecting at Elgin. And that would be more of a greenway component with a storm sewer underneath. And then what we called open channel is more of a deeper open channel connection to try to connect through that area, less greenway walkability type of components as part of that. So we appreciate any feedback that you have, and feel free to email any of us on the team and connect with Anthony if you want to provide some feedback that you're not able to here. Thank you.
I'm just leaving a few minutes for everybody to take a vote on the configuration so that we can get that back to Jeff.
And we are receiving comments in the chat as well, and we will be capturing those, and we'll make sure to share those with the project teams this evening. Jan, and then John, I responded to your question as well regarding the next community meeting to discuss the connectivity effort. So I just want to make sure for anyone, while we're wrapping up, if you believe I may not have your email address, please put that in the chat and I will add you to our distribution list so we can make sure to keep you informed.
And the recording is always available, Anthony, on our website?
Yes, correct. And it will be posted to the website as well. I'll put that in the chat, bit.ly Washington/Washington projects. That's where we will post the recordings as well.
Also remember that if you have any questions, just be sure to reach out to Anthony. You may have missed something in the meeting tonight, or you want further information, just reach out to Anthony. He's there to help you get your answers. So Anthony, do you want to take it to the community updates? And
Yep, I believe Lacey from NETC had some information I believe that she wanted to share if she's still on the call. Lacey?
I am on the call and I'm gonna hand it over to Simon with HPTE. We just wanted to let everybody in the 80216 community know that there's a public meeting on September 29th. It is from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Swansea Rec Center. We can send out flyers. We'll have flyers going around the neighborhood, but I'll let Simon introduce the topic. Super important for people to be there so that they can share their perspective and the voice of the community. Simon, you want to chime in?
Sure. Thanks, Lacey. So I'm Simon Logan. I work for the High Performance Transportation Enterprise. We help CDOT with surface transportation projects that involve innovative financing. As part of that, obviously, the Central 70 project will have express lanes, and it's a requirement for us to put in place a program that will mitigate the financial burden of accessing those express lanes. So we have shortlisted 3 options that we're going to bring to that meeting that Lacey mentioned. It'll be in the rec center on the 29th from 5:30 to 7:30. It will be an in-person meeting, but if you're not able to attend, there will be an opportunity for you to provide your input and feedback on those 3 options after the meeting through a polling tool that we will be using. Yeah, and thanks, Lacey. Free food, childcare, translation will be available.
it's at the rec center as well.
Yes,
for those on the phone. Yeah.
Swansea Rec Center. Exactly. So we'd welcome as many people would like to come and provide your feedback. And if you're not able to, then we'll certainly be sharing a way for you to give us your input and feedback on the program options. Thanks for the opportunity, Anthony, to put in our pitch for that. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Lacey.
Great. Then I think we have one last slide, and that is the slide. If you're able to please scan this QR code and respond to our Survey Monkey so that we can collect your feedback. The most important thing that we want to capture this evening is, how did you hear about tonight's meeting? We at OCBE, we mailed postcards to, I think it was over 1,000 households in the Globeville, Elyria-Swansea area, letting them know about tonight's meeting. We flyered the community near Washington Street, and then the community advisory group, they received word that this meeting was taking place, as well as a community collaborators list that I also maintain. And it's just really important that how best should we be sharing this information with you, the community? Because if those avenues that I mentioned momentarily or earlier are not the best way, then let me know how, because we want to make sure that you stay informed. Your thoughts, your opinions are critical to these project teams, as you got to experience this evening. We absolutely need to hear from you. And if the mechanisms that we're using, I know most of it's electronic, but again, we did mail a postcard this time and flyer. Is there other ways that we should be reaching out to you, the community? Please let me know, and I will be happy to incorporate that into your outreach and engagement strategy moving forward.
This is Jenny. Just a heads up that Bitly link didn't work. I had to do the research on my own to try to pull it up until I was able to research it on Google and then the City and County of Denver's website. that's how I was able to participate. So just the links might not be working.
Thank you. Let me, Washington Prod, WW, that's, it took me right there.
I noticed it too. I wasn't able to do the bit.ly link.
Yeah, I used the flyer and then the document the city and county of Denver used, and it's the exact same one. No bueno.
So I apologize. I just cut and pasted it from the actual website and I just put it in the chat and it took me right there.
Is it case sensitive?
It is not, well, it's.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is case sensitive, yes. But the link that I just added again at 7:37 p.m. and I thank you for staying around. When I clicked that, it took me directly to the website.
Yeah, I got
Fix this on this slide. It should be lowercase w and lowercase p. So our sincere apologies.
Okay, so we're gonna change this. It is Washington Projects, but it's all lowercase.
Yeah. And
So that was our mistake.
Jenny, thank you for pointing that out. We would not have known. I appreciate that.
Okay, Anthony, anything else we want to add? We've got people 8 minutes past their dinner time. So anything else you want to add to it?
We will be sending out this information. So again, if I don't have your email, please include it in the chat. We will be sending the recording, the link to the tonight's meeting, the recording, as well as the chat. And you can reach me via email and my cell phone number is on the screen. Please do not, the reason it's there is because I want you to contact me on my cell phone. If I can connect you with any of the city resources or individuals that were a part of tonight's meeting, please just call me on my cell phone.
Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your attention and your feedback to these really critical infrastructure improvements. And we'll be talking to you again and hope to see you again soon at our next meeting. And don't forget, there's a couple of meetings, the pop-ups and also the meeting on Wednesday, the 29th at the Swansea Rec Center. So that information was in the chat. I hope you were able to catch it, but if you didn't, don't hesitate to reach out to Anthony at 720-252-0274 or anthony.aragon@denvergov.org. Thanks, everybody. We hope you have a safe and restful week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, team. Thank you, community.